You know, it's been a while since I've made a video.
Turntable in New South Wales, and the next nearest state in terms of the number of tests that have been done, which is a very important part of managing this COVID virus, is Victoria.
It is a long and extensive set of rules in terms of social distancing, 1.5 metre spacing, cleaning, a screening of staff to make sure that they don't have any symptoms.
The way we grow ourselves out of the challenges we have economically is what will determine our future. And you don't grow unless you build these sorts of facilities. You don't grow unless you train the thousands of workers who will come and be part of this magnificent venture.
Alright, so this is the old Christie's unidentified radio that I gave up on a long time ago. So, reason being is that the oscillator and all the coils inside of this thing, except the coils inside the IF cans, have been chewed by mice at some point. So the plan with this thing, I've been weighing it up, been a bit indecisive. I was planning just to scrap the entire thing and break the cabinet up, but I feel like what I'm going to do instead, and just because I don't want to break up an old cabinet, is actually remove tuning capacitor IF cans and these two valves. I'm not quite sure what I'm going to do with this one here just yet, but I'm going to make this thing into an amplifier. And I haven't checked out the turntable. I never actually took a look at the turntable, so I may swap the turntable out for something a bit better. So this may become a amplifier they can play music through, just in the cabinet. The only downside is the speaker is a bit knackered and rubs and has holes in it, but I might be able to do something about that. So I'm going to take most of this stuff off. I'm going to replace this number 80 rectifier with a 5Y3 or some sort of solid state rectifier. We'll see how we go with that. 6V6, I'll keep that here. This is a 6B6, yes. Not sure what I'm going to do with that yet, just because it's a lesser common valve. I may replace it with a different preamplifier valve of some description, rewire it for something a bit different. So this is going to be a bit of a butchered video. I'm not going to concentrate on anything too heavily with this, as it will be quite fragmented and made in pieces over time and eventually assembled into one video. Anyway, this is what we're starting off with. I'm currently feeding 13.3 kilohertz into the radio, and as you can see, it's not a huge signal, and you can hardly hear it out of that speaker as I'd expect. However, I have a feeling that little microcapacitor there, down the back there, that connects to ground there, is probably the cause of that reduced treble. So I'm going to try cut it out here. So there's the level. Make sure it's not touching. See there. Yeah, that made a difference. It's in, that's in, and that's out. Cool. Alright. I'll leave it out. Alright, so after a little bit of tinkering, I've gone ahead and installed a 3.5mm jack. And it converts the stereo signal to mono with two 10k resistors. So a little bit of a hell job I've done there. So to test it out, I'll eventually put a fuse and a proper cable on this before I install this back into the cabinet. I've re-glued the speaker and glued where the voice coil wires connect to ensure that they don't break away from the cone. I've had that happen before, so just as a prevention I've done that. The speaker sounds pretty good now. It still rattles a little bit at a certain frequency, but I feel like it that will sort of self-cure. Spread some deoxin into the valve sockets, and that's why there's sort of a oily looking puddle around all of them. Now I've gone to a new valve. Well, it's not new, it's used. I've been playing around with some different valves because this actually has a defect in it where it creates weird interference and it clips because it swings the grid negative. So while it tests really good, this is actually unfortunately defective, which is a real shame because shoulder type 6v6s like this are getting a bit thin on the ground. I've decided to keep the 6B6 just because it's easy and it works well. I've removed the other valves and tuning capacitor as you saw. I've completed the rewiring, the little dial globes. I'll probably only just keep 2 globes in there because it's not illuminating anything serious. So it's powered up at the moment, so I can play a little something here. So it sounds pretty good. It sounds pretty good. I can't play much audio, of course, because YouTube will flag it. But it works quite well. Sound is decent, it has decent response. Being that it's a large speaker, so it'll sound a lot better when it's actually back in the cabinet. I'm not quite sure what I might just leave that alone. I don't want to stiffen up the cone too much. Or lose fidelity doing that. I'd rather just keep it how it is. It doesn't create any noise or anything, so I'll just leave it alone. Anyway, I've decided what I'm going to do is I'm going to make this a part 2 video where I repair this and convert it into an amplifier. So far this is working reasonably well, and I'll also analyse the turntable and check out what sort of state of affairs that thing's in. The only thing I need to keep in mind is that this is designed for a 3V cartridge, whereas modern ceramic cartridges only pretty hard to get and 3V cartridges, and they're mighty expensive. And this thing's definitely not designed for magnetic because that doesn't have a linear response curve. So if I do use this with a turntable, it would have to be a modern ceramic type. And the cartridge in the old turntable is almost guaranteed to be dead at this point. However, I will test that. And yeah. So the amplifier's done. Now all I have to do is check out the turntable. And in part 3 I'll restore the case to the best of my abilities. I've never refinished wood before, so if you've got any tips for that, that'd be great. And here she is. Haven't laid eyes on this thing in a while. So decided to put a hose on top of it. Yep. Never refinished a radio before, or anything wood, so should be interesting. Again, if you have tips on what I could do, let me know. That doesn't want to spin around and lock, okay. The tile glass. See Christie's in there. Tone. Vernier, is that? Vernier tuning, okay. Wave band. Volume, loud and soft. That's where you put your spare needles. It's a Garrard, if I'm saying that right. Cool, okay. Model T record player. See if it still has the little ceramic piece that you convert it to the American 45s. Yeah, it even says it right on there. Okay, cool. This record player is in better shape than I remember. Looks like it's a multi-speed as well. Can't read what they are. It's pretty dark. Sorry for the... Oops. Still got a needle on it? It does still have a needle on it. 33.45 that side. 78 that side, okay. It's almost certain that that cartridge is dead, but it'd be awesome if it's not. Well, I managed to pop the platter off, and this is the sort of business that we're dealing with. Idle wheel has plenty of cracks in it, you can see that. And these wheels, well, the rubber's just turned to goo at some point and then it went hard, so it's sort of just a bit stuffed. The motor still spins freely. You can believe that. That's impressive. Okay, change speeds. These grommets haven't gone totally bad. It seems they still have some softness to them. Don't know what that is. We're saying on off switch. Gear change is frozen. It's hard as a rock, that is. The idle wheel actually isn't all that hard. Because of the cracks in it, I don't know if they would actually sort of play at all. Again, everything, a lot of things appear to be frozen here. It's sort of quite surprising. It's actually better shape than I remember a lot of this stuff being. So I finally managed to get this mechanism out of there. You can see that wheel is spinning alright, but I'm going to dial in on that. Yeah, the cracks in the side of the blooming thing, its chances are pretty low. Managed to sort of get this to change speeds. What's that, 45? 78. Which just goes straight from the idler wheel to the motor shaft in the middle there. And 33 interfaces with that one, so how on earth you would get a replacement for them, I have no idea. Probably can't, is the answer. However, might be able to still make it spin at 78. Sort of get that. I have a feeling this was a relatively high-end unit. Checking out the cartridge, it is a original Gerard A-static. I don't know how you spell, or not spell, I don't know how you say it. So this must have been a replacement from like the 40s or something like that. 16 watts, 40 to 60 hertz. And you got a voltage selector here. So that's different. Of course, it has the old rubber wire. I'm impressed that these sort of rubber grommets here are still, well, they're not hard, but they're working on it. Even the idler wheel really isn't that bad considering its age. I mean, use a bit of sandpaper on it, you might be able to get that to spin. And it doesn't actually have a mark in it, or bump in it, from having this pushed up against there for too long. So it's not going to make a thud 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 when you run it. Reference number 5441. This is a little different to what I'm used to. This looks like it has some sort of oil well inside of it. I'm used to that sort of contraption before. Underneath with this thing, really old school AC motor. This wiring doesn't even look too bad considering. I mean, what's that made out of? Not really sure. Is it rubber? I think so. It's not hard or anything, so that's impressive nevertheless. Made in England. It's obviously your audio output. I'm not used to these sort of spring mechanisms here. This needs a little bit of a touch up. This is all very different to what I've seen. But this is, from what I can tell, this is quite reasonable for the time. I mean, check out all the brass in this thing. This is a well-made turntable. The amount of rust and crap on my fingers. I'm not quite sure what to do with that, so if anyone can let me know, that'd be great. And how to oil that. It is free, but of course I want to oil that. There we go. Something like that. Screw that there. Pop that triangle on. If I can get that bloody nut on it. There we go. Yeah, anyway, something like that. That springy action there. You can still see the red power cable. Yeah. Guess I'll take this back home and give it a bit of a suss out. Check how everything works. First thing I guess I'll do is check out this cartridge. Just out of curiosity, I suppose. Might be a bit of fun. Well, I hooked it up and I mean, flicked my finger across it. It has some output, and this is on the 1/2 volt scale. So it's like rubbing it backwards and forwards so you get about a volt peak to peak. And I mean, I'm rubbing against that reasonably hard, so... I mean, it's alive. It's not dead, but... could be a lot better than that, to be honest. So I'll just sort of sprayed a bit of worth maintenance spray in some of these areas. Just because, I don't know, I thought it was a good idea at the time. Here's under that cover, that bakelite block we saw earlier. That's where the live and neutral go in. So it just goes back on top of that. Somehow it wants to cooperate. No, whatever. So this is where the old wire went in. Excuse me. Thank you. That's where, see the nice little loops they made to go around those terminals? Anyway. I guess we'll put it on the dim bulb tester and fire it up and see if it shorts. Moment of truth, will it short? No, it hasn't yet. Let's enable the motor. Oh yeah, check that out. It's drawing a bit of power. That's a 75 watt globe. Love it. That's a bit funny. Can you see the eye of the wheel? Not really. It's ridiculous. God, I'd like to know what speed that's spinning. Having a little bit of a fiddle. Finally worked this thing out. Not intuitive, but well, for me anyway. It stops there as it normally would, but then you pull it back to restart it. So that's, didn't know that until now. So anyway, I fixed that rattle. The old grommet had gone, so I'd made a assortment of nuts and washers to stand it up a little bit. So I dug out an old record here, an old MGM, no idea when that was made. And I hooked the output of it to this boombox here. So there is some output, not a lot, but fire it up, see if we can hear anything. Oops. There we go. Well, I mean, it works. I suppose now that I have analysed and resurrected the turntable and got the amplifier working. It's the end of part 2. So if anyone has some good tips on where to get parts for this Model T, let me know, especially for a cartridge of this type of unit. I know that having, if I can get light in on that, see there's 2 screws in the back of that. I know that that's a standard, so if anyone has a cartridge or knows where to get them, let me know. Because this may be worth resurrecting. If I can get a hold of something to replace, well, get rubber replacements for the motor. I need to find out a good oil for this motor. And also this oil well spindle thing here. I'm not used to seeing them. I'm not sure exactly what to do with that. Yes, so anyone who knows more about that, please let me know.